Chapter 16, Egypt. 331 BC. I am the grateful horse. Alexander becomes Pharaoh. The world of Egypt is strange. It's fertile and beautiful on the wide banks of its river where big lilies, the scientists call lotus, grow. But not far back on either side lies desert. Close to the sea, the river spreads out into marshland, which is full of birds. The reeds are taller than Hoplite's head and hide monsters that make horrible noises at night. We can hear them from our camp outside the dazzling white walls of their main city of Memphis. Soon after we arrived, the Egyptian priests met us with a crown, but not a flimsy one like those Alexander had been given in Phoenicia. Oh no! The Egyptian crown had a golden snake's head with emerald eyes curling out of the front. There must have been some kind of magic in it, because when the priests placed it on Alexander's head, thunder rolled around the huge columns of their temple. The Amazons looked around, hoping the hole in the world might open again. But there were no angry Egyptian ghosts waiting to go through it, so it stayed shut. I had to wait outside with the other horses, which meant I didn't see the ceremony, but we could hear the cheering as far away as the riverbank. Alexander, Alexander, long live Pharaoh Alexander, King of Macedonia, Lord of Anatolia, liberator of Egypt. This time, it might actually be true, since the Egyptians welcomed us as friends and we didn't have to dominate anyone. Did you expect that? Hephaestion whispered as they emerged, blinking into the sunlight, and mounted me and Pistachios so we could parade through the streets. Pharaoh of all Egypt? Alexander laughed. No, but it's their custom if it is. Why argue? Zeus must have been testing me back in Phoenicia. I have a good feeling about this oracle, my friend, and I'm thinking we should go after Darius once we've finished here. I want to make sure the Persians don't simply recapture Anatolia and Egypt once my back is turned. Removing Darius will show them I mean business. Hephaestion looked unsure. You're holding his family hostage. He won't make trouble while he knows you're looking after them. If we go farther east, he'll fight to defend his land. So, Alexander chuckled and slapped his friend on the thigh. We've defeated his army once. We can do it again. Zeus might not want us to invade Persia, Hephaestion said in a low tone, glancing around to check that no one had heard. Then I'll ask the oracle what he wants me to do. Alexander grinned as he brushed lotus petals out of my mane. Will that satisfy you, my friend? As soon as the parties were over, Alexander set off for Siwa. By this time, he had recovered from the wound he'd received at Gaza and was very cheerful when he came to the horse lines to say goodbye to me. He fed me some Egyptian pastries, which were not quite as tasty as Queen Ada's honey cakes, but still good. While I ate them greedily, he pulled my ears and whispered, Charming General Parmenio will look out after you, Bucephalus. I wish I could take you with me, but it's a month's trek across the desert, and I'm going to need your strength when I get back. You have a good holiday, and stay sound for when we go after King Darius. Then he mounted Xanthus and cantered off with his guard, the cavalry, and the Amazons, while Charm and I had to stay behind in the camp with General Parmenio's veterans and the baggage train. Since Tityos had gone with the other grooms, we were a bit lonely at first, but Charm did mutual grooming on my withers and talked to me in her soft voice until I settled. She said I needn't worry because Alexander wasn't going to fight any more battles. She promised that once he had found out from the oracle who his father was, we'd go home, which seems unlikely considering what he told me before he left. The scientists rushed off upriver to see the pyramids and examine the strange way the Egyptians keep their dead, alive but not alive. Our grooms say that instead of burning a body, they take out its innards and keep them in a jar so they won't rot, then wrap the body in bandages. They do the same with their bulls and cats. If they try it on any of my herd, watch out." The men took the dogs hunting in the marshes and came back laden with geese and fish. The officers organized games to keep everyone occupied while they were waiting for Alexander to return, and the weather stayed warm, even though it was winter. There was a good rolling place on the riverbank, and I spent a lot of my time covered in black mud. It was great, until Prince Arcas showed up. With Alexander away, Prince Arcas often sneaks down to the horse lines to groom Zoroaster. Since being dominated by us at Tyre, he hasn't tried to run away again. But one day he blurts out, "Charmea, will Uncle Alexander do Achilles' chariot thing to my father?" "No," Charm says firmly, putting an arm around the man-colt. "Of course not. That bad man at Gaza wasn't a king like your father, and King Alexander was sick from his wounds, so he wasn't thinking properly. He's not like that normally. Anyway, after he gets back from the oracle, we're going home." Arcas bites his lip. Lady Barsine say Uncle Alexander not go home yet." Charm gives the prince a sharp look. "How does she know?" "She go to his pavilion. She say he like to fight too much. I want to see my father again before Uncle Alexander kill him," he adds in a little voice. Charm's face twists. She goes very quiet, like she did at Tarsus before she went to visit the Amazons. Then she grips the man-colt's hand and whispers, "I know you do, Arcas. Don't give up hope. I'll see what I can do." What Charm does is very strange. She bridles both me and Zoroaster, sneaks a look around, and climbs onto my back. Then she unties Zoroaster so she can lead him beside me. We trot along the riverbank until we're past the sentries. They wave at her. It's not too unusual to see a groom exercising 2 horses at once, so they don't realize Charm never exercises me with another horse. If the other horse weren't Zoroaster, there would have been trouble by now, but Zoroaster is far too meek to fight me. I give him a nip on the nose to warn him to not try anything and prance sideways, itching to go faster. I hope we don't have to go at his slow pace the whole way. Charm holds me firmly to a trot, scanning the reeds. She stiffens as a canoe noses into the bank. Arcas climbs out of it. He has a bundle, which she helps him tie across Zoroaster's withers. Then she boosts him up and, with a bit of a struggle, vaults back onto me. This is better. Now that I haven't got stupid Zoroaster's head by my flank, we can go faster. And we do. We gallop across the fields through the sprouting corn until we reach the edge of the desert. Charm is breathing very fast and keeps looking back over her shoulder. This is a real problem for you humans. If you look behind, you can't keep an eye on the danger ahead. As we go over the first dune, a line of monsters appears. They're twice as big as a horse and have necks that look as if they've been put on backward. Men in long robes are perched on their humped backs. Zoroaster doesn't seem too bothered, but I squeal a challenge and go up on my hind legs in alarm. The monsters turn their funny heads toward us, and one of them makes a sound like a mule in pain. I come down to earth and make myself huge, ready for battle. But Charm, who amazingly is still on my back, shouts, "Stop it, Bucephalus! They're only camels. Haven't you seen camels before?" "They won't hurt you, silly." One of these camels comes closer and I give it flat ears. The man sitting on its back grins down at Charm with very white teeth. He looks at Arcas, who is sitting stiffly on Zoroaster, and says in a thick accent, "This is King Darius's son. He is younger than I expected." Charm nods. "Just keep him safe, please." She urges me closer to Zoroaster and whispers to Arcas, "These men will take you across the desert to Persia. I can't come with you. I have to take the king's horse back to camp. Tell your father I'll do my best to persuade King Alexander to free your grandmother, mother, and sisters. I'll make sure he doesn't hurt them. Don't worry." The man on the camel grins some more and looks around. Another camel comes out from behind the dune, and I snort in alarm. Camels smell strong, and the second rider's face is wrapped in a cloth, but I'd know his smell anywhere. It's my enemy, the old horsemaster. You're going to be in a lot of trouble for this, slave, he says with an evil chuckle. Charm stares at him, unsure, but when he pulls his scarf aside to reveal his face, she goes rigid with fear. She quickly recovers her wits and pulls out her dagger. "Get out of here, Alcus!" she yells, tugging me around so abruptly I lose my hind legs in the sand. "Get back to camp, it's a trick!" But it is too late. Men armed with long pikes rise up from the dunes all around us. I recognize Macedonians from General Parmenio's command. Alcus freezes. The leader of the camelmen shakes his head at Charm. "I am sorry," he says, "but what else could I do? I have to make a living. If I helped King Alexander's prize hostage to escape, my caravan would be finished forever." Charm glares at the horsemaster. "You!" she whispers. "You've been spying on me." The horsemaster sits casually on his camel and smiles. "Told you I'd follow you to the ends of the earth, didn't I? I must say I underestimated your cunning, but you really think it would be so easy to help the little Persian prince escape? What's the matter, slave? Can't you control that old nag of Alexander's yet?" I am acting wild, worried by the pikes and strange animals surrounding me, but the camels don't seem very impressed by my flat ears and squealing. This is probably because they are bigger than me. When I feel Charm start to slip, I remember she is not Alexander. I calm down so she doesn't fall off, but lash out at anyone who gets too close. The Macedonians keep a wary distance. They signal that Charm should throw down her weapon. She clutches the dagger tightly and grips my reins in a determined way, as if she means us to fight. Then she looks at Alcus and shakes her head. She drops her dagger in the sand. A soldier picks it up and scuttles out of range of my teeth. One of the Macedonians takes Zoroaster's bridle and leads him back towards the camp. The others indicate with their pikes that Charm should follow on me, which she does with tears in her eyes. The horsemaster rides his camel close behind. I lash my tail at the camel and go sideways so I can keep my good eye on it. The horsemaster watches Charm, smiling in his dark way. "General Parmenio will arrest you if you come back to camp." Oh, that's Charm, sorry. "General Parmenio will arrest you if you come back to our camp," Charm says in a brave voice. "Really?" the horsemaster says. "And why is that?" "You tried to kidnap Bucephalus at Thebes, and you attacked me in Halicarnassus. King Alexander wants you caught and punished." "You're the one that's going to be in trouble, slave, not me. General Parmenio and I go way back, a long way. You'll be more than grateful for me bringing Prince Alcus back." I feel the hairs of Charm's legs prickle against my sides. "I am the king's personal groom," she whispers. "If you touch me, he'll kill you. You know what he did to the governor of Gaza, don't you?" "Yes, I heard about that, but seems his temper has grown as bad as his horse's. But our fierce young Alexander's on the other side of Egypt talking to the gods. By the time he gets back here, I'll be long gone." Charm shudders and grips my mane tighter. Alcus turns to look at her, lip trembling. "Charmea, the general won't hurt my mother because I tried to run away, will he?" Charm flings the horsemaster a look that is the human equivalent of flat ears and says, "It was my idea, Alcus, not yours. I am the one who will be punished." Behind us, the horsemaster's smile widens. I lash my tail at his camel's nose and the animal shies, making him grab his hump. The horsemaster won't get near Charm while she's on my back. Camels might be big, but they are obviously stupid. I'm still the boss around here. Betrayal. General Parmenio is waiting for us at the horse lines. He sends Alcus back to Lady Barcine's tent with 2 of his men, while a 3rd man leads Zoroaster away. He grabs my reins himself and orders Charm to dismount. She slides off me and her legs buckle. A soldier takes her arm to steady her. I squeal and shake my head at him, warning him to leave her alone, but the general gives my reins a hard jerk. "Stop that, Bucephalus," he snaps. "I've had about enough of your temper." The horsemaster's camel lurches to its knees with a grunt so he can get off. Afterward, it stays sitting down, chewing on a piece of hay. Stupid, as I said. Even a mule wouldn't sit in the dirt for long by choice. The general shakes his head at Charm. You're more dangerous to this army than all of King Darius's Persians put together, he says. What did you think you were trying to do? She stares at her feet. Please don't punish Prince Akis, sir, she whispers. It was my idea. I know it was. An 8-year-old boy would never dream up anything so stupid. He frowns at her bowed head and presses his lips together. Then he nods at the soldier to let her go. Here, do your job. Settle this horse back in the lines and put his muzzle on. Use 2 tethers so he won't get loose. Charm eyes the horsemaster, who is leaning against his camel with his ruined leg stuck out to one side and smiling darkly. Bucephalus needs a roll, sir, she stammers. So does Zoroaster. Do what I told you, the general barks. The horses can have their roll later. Charm bites her lip and obeys. The Macedonians watch her every move. Her hands tremble as she fastens my muzzle and doubles my tether as ordered. She keeps glancing up at the general and the horsemaster, who are speaking in low voices as if they are members of the same herd who know each other very well. Which they are, because for many years they both served under the one-eyed king. A soldier brings me a bucket of water. I am thirsty after my fright with the camels in the desert, so I suck it up through my muzzle. The water tastes strange. I expect it's dirty because they are not grooms and know no better. Charm holds on to my mane as I drink. Can I groom Bucephalus now? She asks the men. They shake their heads. One tugs my tether to make sure it's securely tied. Another takes Charm's elbow and steers her back to the general. The other men stand to attention, keeping people away from our part of the horse lines. Charm takes a deep breath. I'm very sorry for what I did, sir, she whispers. I only wanted to get Prince Akis to safety, back to his father. Please don't tell King Alexander. The general waves her to be quiet. He's looking at something the horsemaster has handed him. It is a piece of flattened grass with marks on it. He rolls it up, hands it back to him, and gives Charm a thoughtful look. This isn't the first time you've betrayed the king, is it? Charmea, I know what you did at the Syrian gates. If it weren't for young Alexander's amazing energy and luck, none of us would have gotten this far. Our bones would be rotting on the battlefield back at Issus, and you would be serving sherbet to the great king's guests in a Persian palace. She trembles and looks at her feet. This scroll is very interesting. It's a list of all the garrison slaves at Methone. I always thought there was something suspicious about a girl who does a boy's job. I should have looked into your background before, especially since Alexander seems to think such a lot of you. The king's got no idea who you are, has he? But you are far too close to him, so I'm afraid I have to get rid of you. As it happens, the horsemaster has solved the problem for me quite neatly. He eyes me. I'm feeling sleepy and my legs feel like temple columns. It's hard to concentrate on what's happening to Charm, but she's so white I think she might faint. All right, the general says to the horsemaster. You can take her. I don't care what you do with her. Just make sure she doesn't come near this army again. Alexander will be upset, but it can't be helped. There's one other groom who can manage the horse, and he'll be back soon enough. Charm stares at the general in terror as she realizes how he intends to punish her. She starts to run, but she doesn't get far. The Macedonians catch her and bind her wrists. She kicks and struggles as they easily lift her between them and carry her over to the horsemaster's camel. They push her against the animal's flank, pinch her nose, and make her drink something from a leather flask. She splutters and tries to spit it out. Help! She screams, twisting her head. Bucephalus! It's my name. I lift my head, which is drooped almost to the ground, but I am securely tied, and I feel very strange. I lose my balance and fall on my knees. It's too much effort to get up. Charm stares at me in horror. What have you done to Bucephalus? She cries. Let me go. He needs me. Bucephalus! We put something in his water to calm him down. You'll feel the same way shortly. It's not harmful, just easier this way, says General Parmenio, frowning at her. Charm is still screaming and sobbing, but after a moment her struggles cease and she sags against the camel. The horsemaster looks triumphant, and the Macedonians tie her across its hump. He climbs up behind her, hits the camel with a stick, and the animal lurches to its feet. Thank you for remembering our old friendship, General, he says. I am glad there's at least one sensible officer left in the Macedonian army. He breaks off as someone approaches on my blind side and mutters a curse. Oh, Zeus! Is that crazy muleteer still alive? There's a struggle going on behind me. I smell the old mule master, the one who lost his hands at Issus. He is using the sticks he has lashed to his wrists like weapons. Let the girl go, he growls, shoving General Parmenio's men aside. He glares at the general. If you let that man take Bucephalus's groom, King Alexander's going to hear of it. He gave orders for him to be arrested if he ever turned up again. General Parmenio frowns. That's the man who broke my knee back in Pella and ruined my career, the horsemaster hisses, glaring at the mulemaster. Don't look like his career's going too well either. What happened, mulemaster? Someone chop off your hands because they were so dirty? Yeah, and you've been trying to get your dirty hands on King Alexander's grooms for years, haven't you? Growls the mulemaster, raising his sticks again. Let her go! General Parmenio sighs and his sword flashes out. The mulemaster grunts in surprise as blood spurts from his neck. Before his body hits the ground, his ghost whirls past me. I'm so drowsy I hardly flinch, but the sky rumbles and the men look around. They do not know that the mulemaster defied the Persian curse by backing Zoroaster, the Persian sacred horse, nor do they know about the horse bond. If they did, they might have thought twice about separating me and Charm. The man was no use to anyone, crippled like that anyway, the general mutters, wiping his blade. No one's going to mourn him. The horsemaster looks at the dead mulemaster, and his smile widens. What are you waiting for? The general snaps. Get that girl out of here fast before any of the king's friends see you. These men are loyal to me. They won't talk, but you'd better stay away from this army in the future. Officially, Charmea is only a groom, but I can't guarantee what King Alexander will do if he finds out you've taken her. I'll think of something so he won't come after you. The horsemaster nods, eyes me, and turns his camel. As the camel lopes away, I try a whinny. It comes out like hoplites used to do when he was a tiny foal. Charm makes no sound. Her red curls hang down as if she were dead, although her ghost is still inside her body. To make things worse, the camel left an enormous pile of dung steaming in the horse lines, and there were no grooms to take it away. The smell of it drove me crazy, but the magic General Parmenio's men had put in my water had stolen my strength, so I couldn't even dominate it with my own. An outright lie. Excuse me, tea time. I don't know who looked after me during the next few days. My water was brought in a bucket, always with more magic in it, but even in my sleepy state, no one dared try to ride me, and I'm sure I bit several of the general's men when they removed my muzzle so I could eat my hay. Then, one morning, my water tastes clean, and the clouds in my head begin to lift. By the time I hear the familiar whinnies of the other horses, I'm feeling more myself. I whinny in joy, greeting them one by one. Patassios, Borealis, Xanthus, Harpina, Apollo, Arion, Hades, Electra, Aura. There was a lot of whinnying and rushing around as the horses who had gone with Alexander were taken for their roles and settled in the lines. Their grooms gossiped non-stop about their journey to the oracle. They were dirty, sunburned, and excited. Seeing me in the horse lines, Tydeus called out, Charm? Charm, you'll never guess what happened on the way back from Siwa. The king found a wonderful piece of land between the river and the sea. He's planning to build a huge city there with great harbors so people can travel into Egypt more easily. He laid it all out with chalk and flour. It'll be the biggest city you've ever seen with 12 villages inside it. And there'll be canals and temples to the gods and... He laughed. Charm, come out! Where are you hiding? Charm! He tied Patassios and Borealis in their usual places, one on each side of me, still looking around for Charm. What have you done with your groom, Bucephalus? She must have heard us come back. We made enough noise. I was so pleased to smell someone familiar, I nickered to him softly. He gave me a startled look. What's up with you, you great brute? Glad to see me or something? He rubbed my nose and frowned when his fingers came away covered in dirt. You are filthy. What have you two been up to while we've been away? This time he sounded worried. I nudged him again and snorted. He ran his hands down my legs, stood back and looked at me, puzzled. You're definitely not yourself. You're not ill, are you, Bucephalus? I suppose I'll just have to look after you till Charm gets back. With me and Zoroaster to settle as well, it took Tydeus longer than the other grooms to finish his work. As he's giving us our hay, shouts come from the end of the horse line, and I smell Alexander's sherbet sweetness. The king, smiling and suntanned like the grooms, strides easily toward us all trace of his limp gone. He calls for Charm. Of course she doesn't appear. When questioned, Tydeus shakes his head and says, I don't know, Your Majesty. I haven't seen her since we got back. Maybe she went to get some medicine for Bucephalus. He doesn't look quite himself. Alexander gives me an appraising look as he feeds me a pastry. I lick his palm. He runs a hand down my neck, looks at the dust on it, and frowns like Tydeus did earlier. Find me Charmides, he shouts. Some of the grooms hurry off to obey. Tydeus stammers, I am sure she must have a good reason for not being here, Your Majesty. That is when General Parmenio appears, carrying something in his hand. It smells faintly of Charm, and for a moment I think she's back. I swing around on my tether and nicker hopefully, but it is only her purple scarf, the one Alexander gave her at Issus. It's torn and covered in blood. Alexander stares at it. He clenches his fist, and some of the light goes out of his eyes. But he raises his gaze to General Parmenio and tilts his chin. What's this? Why is my horse unattended and dirty? I'm sorry, Alexander, but my men found this scarf down by the river. They think your groom must have been attacked by a crocodile. I organized a search party, of course, but we couldn't find her body. That's the trouble with a girl doing a boy's job. She must have gotten careless when she was washing. This Egyptian river is dangerous for those who don't know it. My men have done their best with Bucephalus, but he's a difficult horse to manage. As you know, this is an outright lie. I lash my tail and give the general flat ears. He eyes me warily, but keeps his attention on Alexander. He makes himself huge as if he expects a battle, and holds out the bloodied scarf. I'm sorry, but I'm sure you understand I can't be everywhere at once looking out for grooms. I hope the oracle gave you good news. Alexander takes the scarf and frowns. He looks hard at the general and says in a level tone, Thank you for your efforts, General. That's the trouble with my leaving camp in the care of an old man. This wouldn't have happened if I had been here, but not even a son of Zeus Ammon can be everywhere at once. General Parmenio flushes. He says in a low tone, It was your idea to go gallivanting off to Siwa when you should have been here negotiating a peace treaty with King Darius. His last offer was very generous. All the lands west of the Euphrates, his daughter's hand in marriage, and his son as a permanent hostage. You are already captain of the Hellenic League, lord of Anatolia, and now pharaoh of Egypt. No Macedonian king has ever ruled so great an empire. If I were you, Alexander, I'd accept. We've finished what we came here to do. We've thrown the Persians out of Anatolia and liberated Egypt in the bargain. The men are ready to go home. Alexander's face flushes too. He snaps at the open-mouthed grooms to find themselves something useful to do, and they melt away. But being grooms, they hover behind the baggage carts to listen. Tydeus stares at Charm's bloody scarf, his face white. Alexander rests a hand on my hindquarters and takes a deep breath. He's standing on my good side, so I can see him. He makes himself huge, without seeming to try. Even in his dusty tunic with his head bare, he looks more of a boss than the general ever does. I'd accept Darius's offer, too, if I were you, General Parmenio, Alexander says quietly. You're an old man, so it's understandable. You should have an old man's fears. The Siwa oracle told me I'm the son of Zeus Ammon, who changed himself into a snake to visit my mother the night she conceived me. King Philip is my mortal father, and his old horsemaster is a liar and a traitor, as everyone knew all along. I'm not afraid of the Persians or their curses. Did King Darius conquer the Gordian knot? No, I did. We've already beaten their army once, so we can beat it again. I could marry Darius's daughter right now, if I so wished. I already have the lands Darius is offering me. Prince Arcas will soon learn to love me as a father. I'm the son of a god. What do I need with the ransom Darius is offering for the rest of his family? I don't want more gold. I don't want a frightened Persian wife back in Macedonia. The oracle told me the only way to avoid King Philip's fate is to claim all the lands, as far as the Eastern Ocean, in the name of my holy father Zeus. I will be rewarded with immortality, and so will every man brave enough to follow me. He looks at Charm's bloodied scarf, and a shadow crosses his face. Tell the men to break camp, General. There will be no talk of going home. We're starting after Darius tomorrow. General Parmenio stares at Alexander as if he's seeing him properly for the first time. Alexander glares back. Well, he says softly, what are you doing still here? The gods spoke to me at Siwa. Do you dare question their authority? The general shudders slightly and hurries away. Son of Zeus. After Alexander had gone, Tydeus stood frozen to the spot. The other grooms ventured out from their hiding places and glanced at one another. When I nudged Tydeus, he gave a great shuddering gasp and turned to me with tears in his eyes. No, he whispered. She can't be dead. Eaten by a crocodile? It can't be true. It can't. I wanted to tell him she was alive, but he didn't understand horse talk, and so I nickered him and nudged him again. When he finally took a comb and started to groom the dirt out of my coat, it was such a relief I acted as gentle as Aura and did not nip him even once. Groom gossip was subdued that night because of what they thought had happened to Charm. But they had so much to talk about, they couldn't keep quiet for long. While Tydeus went off to be alone, they argued about what the oracle had really told Alexander. The main theories are, he's the son of Zeus, like he told everyone, and he's taking us all to the edge of the world. He's the son of the old horsemaster, and he has made up this story about being the son of Zeus as an excuse to go after King Darius. He's the mortal son of King Philip, and he's afraid to take us home in case someone assassinates him too. Oh, and guess what he's calling his fine new Egyptian city? Alexandria! You'd think he might have named it after poor Charm. End of chapter 16.